Hello! Let me know if my audio sounds good. I was kind of messing with this thing today. Hello, and good exactly afternoon from Eastern Standard Time. Good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Gremlin Geek, good to see you. How you doing? Let's see here. Gremlin Geek, does my audio sound okay? I hope it does. Got a lot of good news. Lana VR. Good afternoon. Audio is good. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So we got some stuff. Man, yesterday was kind of an insane day. Lots of good stuff at work and whatnot, but very busy. Missed a lot of people's streams because I was too busy on meetings and stuff. I was having problems with my AirPods, so I couldn't cheat on the meeting. Alright. We're going to get started right away. Not that we have anything specifically prepared, but it's just a pretty good idea to get kicked off. Talk about what maybe we'll do. Hang out. So, let's see. Yeah, finally, I was using my Noodle to pre-size my fonts and whatnot, so it look okay. So, notes from our sponsors. There is some stream news. So, my work is fully embracing my stream and has pretty much offered whatever you need, we'll support you. If you need stuff or equipment or whatever you need time to prepare for your streams or whatever, then you can have it, which is cool. I'm very excited. They're excited about it because I'm excited about it. So, in case you missed it last time, right in the middle of a little bit of a train wreck of a stream, but a fun one, I got the email for Twitch affiliate, which I don't know if that's a normal time frame for people to get that. Maybe some people are quicker. I don't know. But it felt pretty cool to me, because I thought maybe I'd have to go like a whole 30 days or something, which I don't care. But there are new commands, by the way. There are several new commands. So we'll go over some of those that we have now. Is the music too loud? Yeah, let's back that off just a little right there. I know. How's that? A little better? Let me know if that didn't fix it. I'm not really directly monitoring it. I mean, I'm listening to it, but the volume I hear it at is totally different than what's being put there. Because apparently, in watching some of my previous streams and whatnot, I noticed that this volume controller on my headphones was directly impacting the volume that was in the chat. So, today I learned. I didn't know. So yeah, we got, let's see. We got some commands we can play with now. Well, real quick, so, let me pull this up. So, we already had an issue made in our crazy named GitHub repo, was add a YouTube command. So I've added a YouTube command, so you could try that out. Hopefully that actually puts it in there as a link. I don't know, but I didn't stop there, and I went ahead and closed that with that screenshot. So we're all good there. So in Octobox, if you're not familiar with Octobox, is a great way to manage your open source notifications, pull requests, etc., etc. I triage very aggressively on this kind of stuff. Not that I have that much going on anyway. Most of it's all work stuff. There you go. Yep, exclamation point. Nice. Made it a link, I think. Is that a link? Okay, cool. Okay. So then, we got some other commands. So we've got do it live. Yeah, Octobox love. Exactly, LenonBR. It's so fantastic. Really wish GitHub would just buy that and make that their way of managing notifications, because have you ever tried to do it through GitHub? Yikes. I mean, I guess really it's not that bad. It's just that Octobox makes it seem so much better that I'm passing kind of unfair judgment on GitHub. So that's kind of crappy. Sorry about that. But yeah, so some other ones. So we've got YouTube, we've got Keyboard, we've had Shoutout, Whiteboard. So it should bring up a link to that OnTask thing. I didn't use an affiliate link or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing right now. Docked. So Octobox pulls from the GitHub API and it lets Darty autocomplete. Here. No worries. There. Okay. So some of those I actually went through. Stream Elements has a view where you can analyze your chat and find out the most popular hashtags. So I figured I'd just make those commands. I think there might be a timeout of a couple of seconds if it's posted and then it's posted again. I think it'll only do it once. Yeah, global cooldown and user cooldown. Those are defaults. I didn't tweak them. So if you guys have problems with that, let me know. Yeah, last stream, it would have just been the entire chat flowing with Squirrel. Nikki Dubs. Welcome to the chat. Nerds, exactly. Nerds. Whiteboard, there you go. So that should take you to this, the OnTask whiteboard that we use here. There. There we go. The other one, I added a work command in case people wanted to know what I do for work. And I added an MS command because I get asked at least more than 3 times if I work for Microsoft. And no, it's like I look around at all of the Twitch folks that I follow and support, and I'm thinking, am I the only person here that doesn't work for Microsoft? What's going on? Work. There we go. Stream is dead. Looks like it to me. Back. Okay, good. Good deal. Awesome. Yeah, Atlanta BR, we're hooked up on Twitter. Dang, I need a Twitter command. Good now. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's hard for me to check. Landon BR again, thank you very much for that tier 1 sub. That is the very first sub since we have been able to even have them. So get with me. I want to run some ideas by you about what we do in this community. For example, subscriber emotes. I was looking into that today and I didn't have enough time to prep and like actually make one, but I also figured, what would you guys like? Like some ideas of what you think, like for this one, what should it be? Should it just be a cloud? Should it just be a shipping container? I don't know. So we could continue with Arduino and we could get to the desired goal of Johnny 5, and then that would set us up to do the stoplight project. And we also have our Gatsby Docker serverless development blog that we were in the middle of working on. I could do a GraphQL demo. I actually have a project that I could walk you guys through and show you in action why you would use GraphQL. Docker emotes, yeah, I mean, I think we could do that. I'm pretty sure you're allowed to use them. I mean, my consulting company is an official Docker partner now, so I'm sure I could reach out to somebody and say, hey, got some of these things I can use, do you mind? So yeah, I like that idea. Hang on. Stram. Emma Strams. To-dos. Emotes. Docker? Okay. Docker. Okay. That's a great idea. I kind of like that. Like I was saying, we could do the GraphQL demo. We're gonna end up needing to do some GraphQL in that Gatsby project anyway. But it's also I also already have a project that I did for a demo for a MuleSoft meetup. Rambling Geek just subscribed, second official subscriber. Rambling Geek, thank you very much. Thank you. You will be rewarded with something special. I have to think of what it is. Because yeah, my mind was blown for the rest of Thursday, and then Friday I was so busy at work that I didn't have a chance. But we're going to do something special. That's like blows my mind. And I want you guys by and large to drive this channel. I have ideas and stuff, but Mickey Dubs, oh that meetup, I'd love to see the demo. I didn't get to go. Funny thing about that. It's funny you mentioned that. So I had worked and put together this Rambling Geek, and I am going to continue supporting you. I think what you're doing is fantastic. Your setup is, I'm very jealous. And your content is so cool. Like you have a very cool temperament when you're going through stuff, especially when you were like, heck, let's just do JavaScript. Yeah, depending on kind of the time, it's hard for me to catch you live, so sometimes I'll be catching up on the video on demand. And as an aside, Rambling Geek, you probably will want to set up archiving your videos to YouTube, because I think we can only keep them around for 14 days, and then they start being lost, which I get it, but it's frustrating because there's some streamers from the past that I wanted to go look at some of their videos, and they were gone because they didn't archive them. Nikki Debs, oh, you were there. Okay. Yeah, so the thing about this, all right, so this is at a very, very large company, financial company downtown. They were hosting this meetup for MuleSoft. If you're not familiar, it's a enterprise API connecting software. That's a basic, like, summation of what they offer. And they were recently purchased by Salesforce, I believe. So my director wanted me to come up with some sort of an idea to illustrate the power of GraphQL. And so he had created an API, but I couldn't get to it, so I had to kind of recreate it. So I wrote just a basic REST API server for flight data, and that was because the flight data type thing, it's a very typical Hello World project that you do when you go through MuleSoft training. So we figured the attendees would be familiar with that if they've gone through the training. And in fact, maybe they do have that API laying around in a practice folder. So then, in addition to having to create that, because I didn't actually have one created, I spun up a GraphQL server that worked in front of that, and then demoed kind of how that worked. All ready to go, perfect. In fact, how do you think I was going to demo it? I put it in a container. I was using Docker Compose for these two things. So we get there, the podium's all set up. They have a projector that goes behind me and then across the room in front of me, which I thought was a great idea. It almost works as a speaker monitor. And so I've got my Mac. We're looking around. We finally find the freaking dongles, because Mac. And I hook it up and I test, and everything is fine. The mic is working. The video's working. It's a little bit different resolution, but you know, I do demos and I can deal with that. Not a big deal. And so that's fine. So then we were going to go, I think, second or last. We weren't going first. So we go to our seats, and then when it's our turn, my director and he gets up, plugs in his Windows laptop first, does his little part, which is kind of mostly slides and whatnot, kind of who are we, why are we here, what are we going to show you, why would you want it, that kind of thing. Everything's going great, and then it came time to say, and David is going to take us through a live code demo, and you'll be able to see some of this for real. Okay. Bear in mind, the whole thing was working fine. Plug it in, nothing. The video just kept looking like it was doing that resolution switch type thing where it's like, oh, the Mac realizes it's been plugged in. I'm going to flicker, and then I'm going to come back at a weird resolution on your screen to put it out. Nope, never did. Never did. And I didn't get to code demo the thing that I spent probably 2 weeks of my own time kind of crafting and working through and rehearsing. Nope, done. So I would say technically no one has seen this demo. So we could go through that. I could show you that. There's a brand new Terraform problem that I have from work, which obviously I will abstract that to be like Acme Company or something like that, where we're not quite at the point where we're able to integrate Active Directory into their main like user management system for AWS. But we are about to onboard like a whole bunch of developers, and because we are pushing Docker images to ECR, we can very easily provide permissions for other works on my machine. Well, you know, I have a thing about that. So yeah, and it won't take the whole time. It's kind of fun to work through, so maybe we could do that. And this is also stuff we can work on that's, I'm going to try to get this in that repository that we made as like, these are stream projects that we're working on, so that we can kind of keep track and we don't forget, oh yeah, we never did finish this other cool thing. So we could go through that. There's the Gatsby Docker command that I want to finish publishing. There were some complaints about how we were doing it, and that it added an additional 15 meg. Well, what I thought was funny, do this right quick. Is that if you actually look at the size of the Alpine Git container itself, it's 23 megs. So adding a little bit more for the Git support, that's where I was like, it doesn't seem like much, but maybe I am like bloating it and doing something goofy. Well, as it turns out, it's not that goofy. So we're probably ready where we could push named versions of these things. But anyway, that's other stuff that's still hanging out there. And then there's the Terraform full environment continuation. We never quite got there. SQL Mr. Magoo, hi, like the keyboard cam, nice touch. Thank you very much. And if you have a question about the keyboard, we do have a keyboard command where you can learn all about it. You can learn about that keyboard as well as the mechanical number pad keyboard that I have. I have commands for those now. Because in Pixel Producto, I need to bump my font up here. This is no bueno. There we go. There we go, Rambling Geek, exactly. Keyboard commands. So now we got that. Yeah, so let's do a thing. Let's do the GraphQL thing. Escherina, hello! How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. I recognize you. You're one of the regulars. We've got some new people that are kind of stopping by. If it seems like we're a little friendly around here, it's because, for one, we are friendly. Try to be nice people. But also, the Twitch development community is relatively tight-knit in that we have a lot of overlapping interest, and we end up finding ourselves on similar channels at the same time. So, I believe almost anyone. Sequel Mr. Magoo is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. That means you are going to be able to be alerted every time that I go on, and your support means a lot to me. You make this happen. So let's, okay, we're gonna do the GraphQL thing. Hopefully, I hope it still works. Heck, I haven't fired this up in a while, but it is kind of on brand for this channel because it is a Docker thing. So we'll go into, I think it was for work. Yeah. Where was it? Yeah, flights. Well, we didn't quite get to the weather part, but yeah, let's fire this up. I have so many VS Code windows or projects open. So let's talk about what this is. Don't really know why I have Learn Markdown, but maybe this is where if someone was unfamiliar and I was presenting, they'll be like, what is that weird language? Okay, anyway, we don't need that. Who needs a README? And I know I'm going to have to make this bigger. But let's go into the DB first. That's the most important part, right? So imagine, let me bump this up for you. Here we go. Boom. Do it live. So let's imagine that you had a REST API, just a normal, you know, your normal verbs. I'm using JSON server. So JSON server is a really quick way that you can turn JSON and scaffold out an entire REST API around that JSON. It's great for local development, rapidly iterating across stuff, and actually it's really good for testing out if you have a REST API that you develop against and you aren't in control of it. It's a decent way to prototype out what changes to a REST API would you want to propose and make sure that like you got that sanity check before you go ask the REST guys to make the changes. And then also if it takes a little longer for those changes to either get accepted or get made or reach you on your environment where you can use them, this is a great way to mock out a REST API. So you can see there's only one script developed, so it's just going to run this and it's going to watch the DB-JSON. And the DB-JSON looks like this. So for example, we have a flight. There's get American flights, and it has a bunch of these things. And this is designed to mock out, for example, if you had like a travel agency or something like that, their API might look similar to this, where you've got these kind of weird named REST endpoints. Yeah, JSON server type code. That's exactly the one that I'm using. JSON server is fantastic. You'll see how cool it is here in a second. Now, to spin this, all you do is you provide the JSON, right? So this is just going to be a big old blob of my stuff that's coming back, right? If I do, you know, the /get American flights. Now, the Docker file is real simple. We just pulled from FR3TJE is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the channel. We're just going over a little bit of GraphQL and Docker because we're going to end up needing to be kind of familiar with these for other projects that we're doing. You may not have a lot of exposure. Maybe learning from someone is interactively with a chat and you can ask questions and we can help each other. Maybe that's a little bit better than just going through a Pluralsight course or an online tutorial or reading the docs or whatnot. You should do all three of those, but Anyway, so back to this. So we're going to say our base image is going to be Node, Alpine, because we're not doing much with this thing, so keep it tiny. We do the normal stuff. We make a working directory. We copy our package JSON and package lock JSON. So that star lets you do kind of like the splat operator wildcard thing. We'll copy it into that directory. We'll run the npm install quiet, which I'm not 100% sure what quiet does, because in my experience, it's still never quiet. I wish it would just do the thing. And then we're going to expose port 3000. It's Fretche. Hi. I see what you did with your leet speak on your 3 and your E there. Nice. Good to see you. Thank you for the follow. You should be able to be alerted every time I go live now, since you're following. So that's nice. I follow a lot of people. Okay, so we're going to expose a port. It's important to keep in mind the ports that you're exposing. If you're not going to be using something like Docker Compose, you can end up with port collisions on your Mac, because if we just ran this, it would be running at localhost 3000 on our Mac. And if you tried to start up something else that had localhost 3000, then it won't let you, because it's like port already in use. So sorry, buddy. And 3000 is just a thing that I think it came from Rails. It was like the first one that did that 3000 by default. I don't know. Used to do Rails. So that's our database, our mocked out database. It's got a way to start up. So let's go into the Docker Compose file, and then we'll start talking about the server. Ooh, a lot going on here. So let's step through this. This is for that database. So we're going to build the Docker file that's inside our relative path inside DB. And if you name it something different, that's fine, but if it's just named Docker file, it's a convention. It'll pick it up. We're going to give it an image name and a container name, just so when we're listing stuff out, it's easy to grep. Because I have a lot of Docker stuff going on this machine. It gets kind of messy. The command that we want to run is npm run develop. You'll notice I don't actually have a default command in here. I'm not actually running anything by default, because this thing, I never was going to ever spin it up by itself. But if you wanted to, we could actually do that. So in the Docker file, if you want to specify a command, it's an array of strings. So npm run develop. So that way, if you don't pass an argument or you spin up just this thing, it should be fine. Okay. We're going to do a volume mount. So we're going to take the /db and throw that whole thing in the user app. So we're just writing over it so that if we make change outside our host, it'll be reflected inside the container. So it lets us iterate on that, which is pretty useful on your local machine. And it's useful if you're doing a demo and you're like, oh no, the demo gods, I got to go fix something live on the stage. It'll let you do it without going through the rigmarole of having to rebuild containers and re-up the Docker Compose and all that. Then for the node module, since it is a node application, we are going to do an unnamed anonymous volume mount. So what that means is I don't care what the name is, and I'm going to let my install of Docker stick that wherever the hell it wants. So LandonBR asks, with Docker, what is the difference between doing CMD params versus CMD params? It's the difference of if you do it in your Docker file versus in your Docker Compose file. So the Docker file is pretty specific about that. Yeah, and with this one, you don't have any of that weird syntax. It's just a different syntax. It's because the Docker file, you'll notice this is a very specific syntax, whereas with Docker Compose is all still valid YAML. So any of the niceties that you get with YAML, which actually I think you could write all this with JSON if you wanted. So yeah, and then here we'll just go ahead and say the inside port of 3000 that it exposes. I don't care, I'll map that to my outside of 3000. This lets us access this thing directly from our machine at port 3000 in case we want to show off what is JSON server and what does it do for you, which we will in just 1 second. Now, if we go into the server, right, so this is our GraphQL server. So we've got things like Axios and Express and GraphQL, Morgan, and all that kind of stuff. Morgan just for logging and whatnot. So It's got serve, which would be like I built this thing, it's all ready to go, and I just want to say run the thing. Or it's also got NodeMon watching a couple of things. So it's going to watch my app and my schema and my index. And so you can go into that. This is the most basic thing ever. So this would get run. And it's going to require app, and it's just an Express server. What's the Express server look like? I don't have to go through a lot of this stuff. It's pretty normal, but the important one right here is going to be Express GraphQL. That is the thing that exposes all of this GraphQL nicety for Express to use. And you'll see that on line 18. Rambling Geek, a few months back, I tried to get into Docker on Windows. I thought made it might go wonky donkey. In what way? I'm sure that that's a technical term that I'm just not aware of in the industry. Were you on, that keyboard seems familiar. You may have seen this around. You may have seen it on that gentleman's channel. But yeah, I saw that he had one and he told me about it and I went and bought two. And they're fantastic. They're my main keyboards now. Yeah, we have a keyboard command now. How professional is that? Your PC, lots of network issues. Yeah, I don't know. I've had other issues with other developers on Windows, but they're never consistently the same. Esharina, you have one too. Awesome. What switches did you get? What did you go with? Maybe Esharina, one day I'll see you using it on your stream. Wink, wink. So, what I like to do always in a container is I like to provide a health check endpoint. So that means that if this thing is up and running and I ping it, it's going to send me a 200 OK. And then this is my default route, which is 404, you weren't found. And then I just export the app. But the magic comes in right here. Oh, you got browns. Nice. Very nice. Those are not super loud, right? They're not clicky. I may have tried some. I don't remember. Rambling Geek, I like the look of the keyboard. Just look to buy and get shipped over. Not sure about the keypad. Oh, the keypad? The numpad? Yeah, I don't have that numpad up at work. The keyboard it is programmable. There are a couple different layers that you can switch to. So yeah, you can program it. I didn't really. The only thing I do is I switch a few keys around. So like control. Select the control is my caps lock because I hardly use it, and then caps lock becomes control because it's easier on my pinky. And then I got my little Vim keycaps and whatnot. But yeah. Yeah, but there's some sequence of things with function and this PN that you can actually program that. I need food, that will fix my typos. Hey, yeah, no worries. No worries. So what we're going to do here is we're going to expose a single endpoint to the client to consume. And that's going to take two arguments. It's going to take a schema, which we'll define. And we say graphical is true. Graphical is a UI for kind of playing around with your GraphQL API to do mutations and queries and whatnot. So yeah, and so, well, what is that schema? Well, we get the schema from our ./schema, which is in this folder. What is a schema? It's a whole hot mess until you're used to it. So it might be easier to actually explain this, but so I put a comment about like what does the data shape look like if I were to query this API that I've made, this flight API. When I get data back, what would that end up looking like? And I just kind of throw that in a comment so that as I'm kind of building out types and things like that, I could split this file side by side and I could start writing, okay, I'm going to get a thing called an airline and a thing called a flight code, all that. So now I'm going to start defining my types. I only have one. And I'm going to define a root query. And that's the only thing that gets exposed is the root query. Now, in the flight types, what's a flight type? So I'm going to name it flight. There's an optional description, and this GraphQL object type, it's a flight. Remember, it kind of looks like that. That's what I'm going to get back when I do these Axios calls to that API server that's also running in a Docker container linked with Docker Compose to this Docker container, if that makes sense. So now my object is going to have some fields. They're pretty simple, right? So if you notice, there's an airline, maps up here to airline. It's just a string. All of these are strings. So we just define airline, there's a type, there's a string. As long as this thing is simple, you're only going to be using these native types, and these types are pulled in right here. So there's an object type, which I'm using right here, so I'm pulling that in. O1 Pollock says, quick question, Spotify extension in VS Code, in what that below Docker extension? Oh, yeah, we could go over that. Yep, so I do have Spotify. Hopefully it works. Yeah. So I can control Spotify right in VS Code. I did that because I could. I was curious. But yeah, if you go into extensions and you search Spotify, it's this one right here. Yeah. And the one below Docker is for Terraform. So it is, I believe it's that one. Yeah. So this is syntax highlighting, linting, automatic formatting on save, and validates your Terraform files that you write. Terraform is a technology that's very similar to CloudFormation for AWS. It lets you define your infrastructure as code. Your cloud infrastructure. Beagle UK is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. Now you're going to get the news when I go live. You'll be alerted because you follow. Thank you. Amazing keyboard. I have a keyboard command if you're curious about what this keyboard is, or maybe you have one and you also know it's amazing and you were just saying. But I agree. It's my favorite keyboard. So we've defined a flight type is a GraphQL object type, and that comes from this that we're pulling from GraphQL, which is a package. That GraphQL object type that we're calling flight type, it has a name, a description, it has some fields. Those fields are also typed, and the type of these is very simple, so it's just a string. I did not use Apollo in this project, no, but I have, yes. O1 Pollux is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. You support the community. Welcome. We're all friends here. And you also will get a notification when I go live. Thank you very much. This is JavaScript, correct? Node in particular. Yep. Okay, so after you define your flight type, and in a normal, bigger project, you'll have tons of types and stuff, then you're going to say your root query. And what's a root query? It is an object. We're going to give it a name and an optional description, and the query has some fields. One of the fields is going to be flights. Well, really, to be honest, it's the only field, because that's all the API has. What does the flights return? It returns a list of flights. If you remember how our database looked, let that open. Our database looks like this, where we would say, get these flights, and it's going to return all these flights for 4 different carriers, which is kind of a pain, but that's what this API does. Well, GraphQL lets you stand up something in front of a potentially problematic older REST API. Maybe it's an API in a different language. Maybe it's coming from 4 or 5 different servers, and you just want to kind of say, I want these parts and only these parts from a whole bunch of crap, and let a JavaScript developer define that in their schema. And so it will return a new GraphQL list that contains these items that are of flight type, which we define what a flight is above. It has arguments like flight code, it has airline, it has to airport code, it has from airport code. This is going to let you kind of filter which ones come back. So you could call get flights, but you could pass in an airline and only get them from one. Or you could pass in to airport code as the only one, and you would end up getting flights from all 4 of those, and it will pluck out only those 2 airport code ones. So it's like a filter, right? The magic is in your resolvers. It's always in your resolvers. Okay, now I have to tell GraphQL in my schema, okay, how do I get flights? How do I get it? So this is really just JavaScript, and it may not even be that great, but you know, it does work. So we have a keyword endpoint map where I take this get American flights and I just want to call it American or United or Qantas or Delta instead of using these things. So here we're saying if I have an airline passed in from here, so that means, yeah, so flight code, airline, to airport code. I didn't write the from, I think I was going to write the from airport code live, or maybe there was a problem. This is sometime last year that I wrote this. So if I have an airline, then I'm going to do an Axios fetch from the API URL that I kind of defined above, and I'm going to pass the airline into my keyword airport endpoint map. It may not be that great, but it does work. The new GraphQL slogan. I think it's pretty fantastic, to be honest. I'm seriously in love with it. It's extremely powerful. Now, whether this project works, I haven't spun this up in a very long time. And technically I never got to demo it because Macs and DisplayPorts and dongles. So if I don't get an airline filter, then I'm going to define these endpoints. I'm going to create promises for all of them. And then I'm going to do promise all. So it's going to fetch all of these. Then I'm going to get these 4 things that I'm going to destructure out. And then I'm going to use a spread operator on all of those into that array. So I should end up with an array of every flight from every one of these. Now, this is where I don't think I did the from, so I know that. I know I didn't do that. But I had destination filtering. So if someone wants to filter by destination, then I'm going to just do a normal JavaScript filter on each of these things from my fetch. And I'm only going to pull back the ones that match the destination. And it's the exact same thing with the flight code. So if I have a flight code, departure date, I don't remember if I actually got the date thing working. I believe that I did because they're strings, and so here I'm coercing that into a date. And then I just do a normal sort. And then I export this query. So, would we like to see this running? Give me a yay or a nay in here. How do you scale it? It depends on what type of scaling you mean. For example, if you notice in this Docker Compose file, this is that backend database, and this is really just for local development. Don't put databases in containers in production. It's a very bad idea. Type GraphQL. Yeah, I like the typing, and you'll see that it makes excellent documentation too. It makes it easy to kind of expose these things and let someone kind of go play around and say what's available on here. By the way, GitHub, their entire API is now provided with GraphQL. They also provide the older REST version, but they also have an entire GraphQL API. It's pretty fun to play with too. Some of it requires authentication, like to get your private repos or something, but it's pretty fun to play with. So, on scaling. So let's talk about scaling and redundancy, high availability, right? That's provided by this health check. And so if I were to put this on AWS, I would define this is the health check on that task in ECS. And if it returns bad per these, then it will spin up a new container and then kill this container. So that lets you have that, there's something always running. As far as scaling, it's a simple container. And once you build it, you don't really have to do this volume mapping. This is entirely stateless. So if a container is entirely stateless, you just scale them out into multiple containers, and then you have load balancing to say which one of these go. So you could either use, you could use a load balancer, you could use your orchestration engine, you could use Nginx. But that's the beauty of doing things in stateless containers, is that you could just scale those out, and then when the load subsides, you kind of scale those back in, so you're not paying a bunch of money. Hey, Just Me Bro. Hello. How are you doing today? Let it fly. Okay, we got one vote. It's just sitting on top of the data. Yeah, the data's actually living in that database. This is just calling for it. We're not doing any sort of caching or anything like that. We could, but we're not in this. Yeah, it just sits on top, or in front, or however you want to say it. So let's make sure we're in the right place. Let's see. Up, build. Well, I'll spell it all out since people might not have seen me do this a whole bunch. Pose up. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to rebuild these, but we'll do that. We'll let that go. While that's going, I'm going to take a short break. I'm doing great, Just Me Bro. I'll be right back. I'm doing great. Good to hear that you're doing good. While this is spinning up, I'm going to come back, and then we're going to demo both of these things running together. Oh, no. Works on my machine. Okay, y'all. I will be right back. Hey, hey. I am back. We have good news. It came up. Let's see. Nikki Dubs says, are you using Vim controls in VS Code? I am not. No. I've thought about playing with it, but I figure before I tweak a whole bunch of stuff on my machine, I probably want to ship this massive enterprise project that I'm working on. I haven't even updated my operating system because I can't have things not work. But yeah, I'm aware that there are Vim controls. And so, you know, to be honest, sometimes I really would prefer those. I'll show you an example of why I would prefer that. So, for example, okay, so for example, I am well aware that there is column selection and stuff like that in VS Code, but now that I know how to do it in Vim, so if I wanted to turn this into a checklist, so I'd hit Control V to visually select, I'd hit Shift I to insert the square bracket, and then escape, and it does that all for me. And then if I want to actually like tick this off, I don't have to go back into insert mode and like delete and then put. All I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this space character with an X. Now it's checked off. So these are just like things that as I'm starting to get a little more used to Vim, I'm noticing the efficiencies in Vim and the inefficiencies in other things. The problem is I still can't do everything in Vim, and I surely can't do everything with Vim controls in VS Code that I do. So I'm still kind of non-Vim in VS Code. Okay. All right, let's take a look at what this did. What did this do? We'll have this right here. We'll have our compose file, and we'll walk through what did this actually do for us. So what this did is it created this API server. It built the Docker file that's in it, and it gave it a named image. It started a container, and it gave it the name API server, and that's why on the right you see these logs coming from API server, because they're being piped to standard out, and Docker Compose is actually merging all of those logs together, and then it's colorizing the output, so it's really easy to distinguish like what containers log and what. It did a volume map, and it exposed port 3000, so you can see the message right here. It's on 3000. So let's see if that's actually working. Lana BR, and it may be good to wait to update macOS. I've heard SUSE has had some issues. Yeah, I saw that too, and that was, for me, I mean, even if somebody says there aren't issues, go ahead, I probably wouldn't. But then seeing that SUSE was having issues was confirmation that I feel like I'm justified. So let's do a shout out here in case anyone who is new is not familiar. SUSE Hinton, No Upcat, she streams on Sundays at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time and does a lot of really cool stuff with Node, JavaScript, robotics, 3D printing, and she does a lot of stuff. Fantastic streamer, and has cultivated a really loving and welcoming community, which is what I'm hoping to do here as well. And there are familiar faces in the room, and the theme is we're all learning together. Rambling Geek, I work in IT support. We have seen lots of issues. Gotcha. She followed, blew your mind. Oh, SUSE gave you a follow, Rambling Geek? That's outstanding. That's really cool. I remember the first time that I got recognized on Twitch outside of SUSE's channel, and I felt like I was famous. Not famous, but I mean, you know, it's kind of cool. It's like, oh, are you Robert Tables from SUSE Hinton's stream? I was like, what? Anyway, okay. All right, well, let's look at the API server first. Let's bring this up. Like, consider it kind of old tech. So we'll be on port 3000. Do a lot of localhost. There we go. So this is JSON Server. It's a fantastic tool. Southern Cross is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome to the community. Ask around if you have any questions. Dump them right there in the chat, and either I will get to it or someone, a helpful member in the community, will also help you out. We also have commands. You can hit exclamation point commands, and you'll notice that there are two bots that are fighting with each other when they give that command. I have that written down to take care of. Escherina, thoroughly enjoying the stream, by the way. Definitely has good learning together vibe. Hey man, so about a week ago, I did a stream that started with literally Googling Arduino getting started, and then we ended up making a thing live on the stream. I didn't know what I was doing, and I could show you. I haven't touched it since, so it should still work. One would hope. So we'll power this up. So we made that thing live on the stream, and it's just Landon BR, dev, Twitch dev stream famous. No, I think it's just that, I think it's just, it's not necessarily that I'm nice and supportive. I think it's just in such stark contrast to what we all feel around us every day, that it seems that way. Or it amplifies it. So JSON server is an NPM package that lets you use JSON to define and mock out REST endpoints, and it builds all of your stuff so you can have all these. So let's get the Delta flights. So if you click on that, you'll notice if you go to localhost 3000 / get Delta flights, you're going to get an array of these objects as a JSON response, which is pretty much what we just modeled. But I wanted to show you that this is working. Now, you may be wondering, like, why am I able to get to here? I want you to keep in mind that the 3000 that you're seeing me hit, it's defined by this. If I had changed this to 4000, I would have to go to 4000 on my local host to then get mapped to the 3000 internally on the Docker container that's being exposed from its Docker file. So that's called a port mapping. So yeah, so we have that going. So hey, look, you can even see that, like, there was a, well, maybe, yeah, just barely here. My dumb face is in the way, sorry. But you could see it even recorded. We did a get, we got a 200, we got a get. So this API server, allegedly, let's say it's working. Because it is kind of a black box except for what I defined in the Docker file. That's, you know, that's all there is. Now, the GraphQL server. Now, this is a totally different thing. Let's remind ourselves what we have going on in terms of the Express app. So, I think I could, if I do that, yeah, good. Let's do this real quick. Pull this up here. We don't need all our commands up here. Tagaron1 is now following. Thank you very much for the follow, Tagaron. Welcome to the community. Enjoy yourself. If you have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll be happy to try to get to them, or another helpful person will assist. We're reviewing a demo for GraphQL that I had built for an industry meetup about a year ago. But we're doing this because we need to start getting familiar with this, because the secret sauce behind Gatsby, which is a static site generator that does all of your data transformation and data fetching at build time instead of at the runtime, enabling you to produce a static file site that can be served really efficiently, and it's super fast. And their socks are amazing from their store. So if we're exposing, what are we exposing? Let's remind ourselves here. On this one, 8080. So let me open up another one here, and we'll go to localhost, looking around my camera there. If we go to 8080, this is the Express app. Now, why did it do that? It did that because I didn't hit a defined route. So I can hit health check, and I get that 200, and that's important for being able to provide insight into the health of your container. So you see health checks are used in just about every container that you see put out there in production. It has to be hitting something, and a great way to do it is just to do a one-off /health check API. That's a hint. If you want to test some things, try going to URLs with /health check. Okay, so we know these two are working. Now what about GraphQL? So now, what on earth is this? This is the tool Graphical. So by going there and setting Graphical true, I get a UI for what otherwise would be an Express endpoint. You notice the other ones, they were just returning status codes. In Chrome, a browser behavior is that it would print that out. But essentially, I mean, there's no UI to it. This is a whole UI. It's an entire application. So yeah, this is cool. I even remember my history for what I was searching last time. I wonder if I could comment. QSX5 is now following. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the community. Hope you're enjoying the stream. We're just going to do some GraphQL stuff, get us all familiar, kind of show the magic behind it. So, since I'm running out of screen room, let's do this. Instead of having to go through, have you check out GraphQL Playground. Um, it's not ringing a bell as far as the specific term, other than the fact that I kind of consider graphical to be GraphQL Playground. But no, I'm not familiar with that. Go ahead and put a link in there if you want. The best way to start exploring one is to use these built-in docs. Now this should be familiar because one of the things that we did is we exposed a query and we created it as root query type. So if you click on it, it's going to tell you what this is. I know that flight codes are a string, so remember, this isn't the flight, this is the query. And so the query has some parameters that it can take for filtering and whatnot. And it's saying that it will return a list, which is the square brackets, and it will contain a list of type flight. Oh, Prisma, yeah. I'm going through. I've been going through Wes Boss's GraphQL project, and he sets you up with Prisma, the free dev DB for Prisma. Prisma's pretty cool. I'm happy so far. So from here, I'm looking at, okay, I know I have a query, a root query type. The query will allow me to try to fetch flights, and flights can optionally take these things. And you see in this example over here, I am passing flight code, and then I'm defining what flight code do I want to limit. Then it takes some other ones, and it's going to return type flight. Really, Stream Deck, right now? Like, while I'm streaming? I think that's a bad idea. Yeah, Pollux, no, not that specifically. I don't know. Do you like it better? I haven't run into too many problems with this, but I haven't done a bunch of complex stuff with it, really. Especially not in the case of, like, the demo. But we will, let's see. Let's just do this, where I'll take this. Stream Deck just wants to watch the world burn. Yeah, well, I've been putting off the update. Again, it's like I want things to work, so like maybe after this stream today I'll do it, because I don't think I'll be unless I do an ad hoc one. I won't be streaming until Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So if things go wrong, maybe I would have time to fix it. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm getting ready to go live, and then now it popped up. I'm in the middle of a stream. What are you doing, man? Okay, so this thing, one of the things I don't like is it's pretty picky on syntax. I mean, even in the tool itself. So let me do this. There, just so I can come back to it if I need to get that flight thing. Okay, so what you do is you have a query, and I want to get flights. And off of flights, I think it's like that. Is that the syntax? No, it should be like, yeah, hang on. What was the syntax? I don't remember. Yeah, that was right. Oh, it's complaining. I'll tell you why it's complaining. Again, it's a syntax thing. So flights, this is actually fine. But now it's going to want me to define at least one property from your flights call that you want to get. Could the music be turned down a little? Absolutely. Absolutely. I will do that. Right. Yeah, we can do that. There we go. Let me know if that sounds better. Okay, and it's going to it's going to lint this saying that there is a problem. And it's because it's wanting you to at least, like, say, get me one property. So let's look at the property, and we'll just use this. We'll go into a flight. A flight, I can get these fields off of it. So let's just pull airline. Oop, let's spell airline correctly today. How about we do that? From airport code is not defined. From airport code is not defined. Wonder why it's saying that. From airport code is not defined. Airline. Well, what are you talking about? I'm not even using that. Let's see. From airport code is not defined. And this part I don't like about it. Requiring some argument. You know, I bet you're right. Let's go take a look at the schema. Maybe that's why it's complaining to me. Maybe I've got something defined as like, you have to have it. Let's go to here. I know it's not that. Light. This is weird. Okay, hang on. From airport code. From airport code. They should be optional for the flights query. Oh, you know what? You're right. Hang on, hang on. No, you're right. You do have to have at least one, I think. No, that doesn't. No, that doesn't make sense. If you have one. So we're going to say if airline. Airline is going to do this, and then it's going to skip the else. I knew this. Nope, it doesn't have it at all. We're not filtering by airline, so it's a problem in here. And then here, we don't have that, we don't have that, we don't have that. I wonder... Is it possible that I have not taken into account the fact that maybe that is missing it? Did we do Delta? No. That should work. Airline. Airport code is not defined. We'll figure this out. We'll figure it out. Caching issue with the UI. That's, that's... Oh, you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Let's close it. It's not that. Nope, not that. Okay. I know that it has from airport code. From airport code. What I'm wondering is there a flight? Is there an airline that doesn't have that code? Is what I'm wondering. So what did that other one even do that we were saving? Did that one even work? Maybe the last time I left off, I was like, this thing's broke. I can't do anything with it. Add the from airport code argument. So let's say, like, as the data? From... No, it's not that. Yeah, I don't know why it's requiring it. That's weird. So... let's do this. Let's see if that even worked. No, so there's something... Did I do something? Did I do something in here to break it? Yeah, let's see what changed in here. So I added that. That's fine. I added from... Oh! Oh, wait. Hang on, hang on. So there must be something that I did. So if you have the from, I possibly could have been in the middle of doing this and I didn't actually... From airport code. From airport code. It's not defined. Change the FQL string from airport code. Oh, right here. It's this right here. That's exactly what it is. So I added the ability to do it, and the problem is that I didn't then make that available inside of this resolver I was only destructuring off flight code airline and from in the to airport code, but then down here I'm starting to try to use this. Does that make sense? I bet it's that. Let's see, and we should see it restart because we are watching and reloading. So let's see if we did it. There we go. There we go. See? Doing it live. Talk to me, Gooseman. Thank you very much for the host. I appreciate it. I guess that's either I missed the alert or I'm gonna have to fix those. They're getting problematic. But there we go. We did it. So let's pretend that we are not going to do any of this. Get back to what I was doing. There. So that's just all these, and you can see that they're ordered. No, they're not. Not in this one. They're not ordered. But I'll show you where they get ordered. And I want to get the. Let's go with the price. And the plane type. I don't really know about that. But so what's really nice about this is as the person developing, you can request the stuff you want. Good morning, Talk to Me, Gooseman. It's good to see you. Well, not morning here, but I know you're out there on that West Coast. Nice to see you. Welcome. We've been going over a little GraphQL demo that apparently I broke between the last time I was going to get it and we just fixed it, which is nice. Well, I mean, you know, the fixing it part is nice, not the breaking it, but that's okay. So yeah, that's this thing, and the nice thing is that you only have this like one API endpoint, and so whenever you get these if you run into these issues where you have a REST API that has a bunch of weird names, like sometimes they do, like people make RESTful services that are not RESTful, like at all. There'll be things that are more like RPC. They're like, you'll use a get on create account and send friend a message endpoint because of like lack of structure and not really controlling the architecture of your REST endpoint, or because you just have to ship it and you're like, okay, we'll just throw another endpoint on the thing. With this, you can kind of craft that. You can pull from multiple endpoints. You can, so if we wanted to do, I think I support this. So in here, and let's remind ourselves what we can do. We can do by flight code. We can do by, yeah, so let's go by plane type. Now we can't do plane type. I didn't do that yet. Let's do airline. I mean, that's real simple because it just calls one endpoint. Whoops. What do I want to call it? Oh, it's not called that, right? Wait. Airline. What did I call it? In my schema. Oh, I wonder if it's not case sensitive, is it? Oh, it's case sensitive. That's terrible. I gotta fix that. That's terrible. But yeah, so I'm just gonna pull back all the ones from United. But you'll notice that it's giving me exactly the things I require, and it's only giving me those things that I require. Some other types of things will do. So I need to fetch a user, and then so I have the user, and what I really wanted is the user's favorite books. And so from the user, I do a fetch on the user, and now I have an array of book IDs, and then I have to go through and I have to fetch all these book IDs. And so it's like you're doing all these round trip types of things. And if you open the network tab on like every SPA, you'll just notice all these get requests back and forth and back and forth. It's because of all that round tripping. And so what this avoids is you can craft exactly one get to a URL and get all of that data that you want, right? And it can handle relationships, which is, you know, not very well defined here because it was a demo, but that's a thing that I made, and it's running in Docker container, of course. So if I said Docker container ls, You see I've got these two containers that are running. It shows you the commands, how long they've been up, the port exposure, the names of the containers, and the image names that they were built from. Which, you know, that's the thing that I mean when we in the compose file where we're defining that. These things, you don't have to use these image and container names. It just makes it a lot easier when you're trying to track it down, especially if you end up having like 10 or 15 of these things running. And then the nice, pretty output here. So, what do you guys think? Not too bad for a little demo that I had to throw together like in a hurry against an API that I was supposed to have prepared for me, and at the last minute it was like, nope. So I just made one with the JSON server. So yeah, that's GraphQL. Why are we looking at this today? It's because one of our projects that's kind of sitting on the back burner is to create a developer blog as an example for how we and you all could do that in a Docker container and end up building it. What is that unhealthy thing in the Docker container's output? What was that unhealthy thing? I'm not... Oh, hang on. Are you talking about in this? Oh, I think it's because on the GraphQL server, I don't have an endpoint. I don't have a health check endpoint on it. I think. No, I should. Yeah, let's see. What does it mean unhealthy? What is it saying? What is it saying? Why is it saying you unhealthy? Health check is to wget. It's going to try. Spider. Health check. I don't know. It's pretty healthy, so I probably have something wrong with my health check. Actually, I should have a... So I know I have that. It's probably something... Maybe it's this. Maybe it's this, instead of just doing a get. Now, Spider, I think Spider doesn't try to like capture and save the response to disk, maybe? Not 100% sure. What is that? Let's see. Collect all. Yeah, what is... Well, just look at the docs. Switch scenes. Yep, sorry. Let me see what Spider actually does. Oh yeah, Spider just says don't download anything because we're just wanting to ping it. We don't actually want to save anything. So yeah, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure why that's saying it's unhealthy. I do know it's working. Let's see. Yeah. Then my logs. Yeah, I hit a post here and a post here. Wait. That's what it is. Wrong port. Did you notice that? I'm saying the port 3000, and I don't actually have a health check on my API server, and so this container is trying to health check on another container. It's the wrong port. It should be 8080, right? So let's stop this and let's bring it back up and see what happens. See? We can figure it out. Don't be afraid of being like, I don't know what's going on. It's using a bunch of caches from layers that it already has, so it doesn't have to redo all that stuff. There we go. Let's see what it say now. It's in starting mode. Okay. I think it's already started up, but I don't know how long. And then healthy. There we go. There we go. We fixed it. Fixed it. Cool. Ship it. So yeah, that's my TED talk on GraphQL. Thank you for listening. So there we go. Let's see what next. We have a little bit of time. What can we play around with? Let's see. We did that. We did that. Whoops. We did that. Talk to me, Gooseman. Thanks, Ted, for the talk. Yes, you're welcome. We're doing some of that. Let's go here. Did that wrong. All right, so we did the demo. The sponsors. Yeah, it's not really, I mean, it kind of is. So my work, in addition to supporting my streaming in terms of just be careful, don't expose anything that's covered by an NDA, they also are now saying, well, let us know if you need things like equipment or exposure and marketing and or time to prep a stream, that kind of thing, and they'll totally do it. So yeah, found that out yesterday, which that's pretty cool. Pretty cool place to work, I'm telling you. When your employer knows that you're passionate about something and they want to support you in it, then that's the sign of having a great place to work, in my opinion. Just like how, Microsoft does a very good job with their DevRel folks, having them on Twitch and providing them with stuff that they need and time to do the thing. Kind of the same thing, but not necessarily to the degree. Nikki Dubs knows, can confirm, great workplace. Fantastic. And if you're curious about what that workplace is, I have a command in the chat, !work. Maybe I should work there. I'm employed there, maybe I should work there. Should do some work there. So, let's back to that. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Rambling Geek, I've asked to work from home and been told no. Yeah, people are still weird about that. And it actually got, yeah, Sharina, yeah, it's pretty harsh. It actually got made worse a couple of years ago when was it Yahoo that said that they're going to pull in all of the remote workers and they're not letting people remote work anymore. They wanted everybody butts in seats at HQ or whatever. That's a terrible way to do things. Oh, one thing that I know that we're going to want to do, I'm going to do it now because I'm going to have to figure this out anyway. I'm going to describe a problem in AWS, and we'll iterate on how we would probably solve it. Add another document. Go in because they bought me a nice monitor and I feel guilty. It is a nice monitor. Yeah, those ultra wide screens they're appealing. I'm kind of jealous. Okay. And I'll bring this other one up for review. Yeah, I think it's nice to have a little bit of flexibility. I mean, I don't work 100% remotely, and I like going into the office because I like seeing people, and I actually like our office, but it's a heckin' commute, and it can get a little distracting, you know? $300. Your streaming ability is way better than you let on. No, this is I appreciate the compliment. But yeah, no, I was just inspired by the way that other developers were doing things, and I saw that they were not afraid to be vulnerable on a stream. And then as it turns out that, if there's a list a mile long of all the stuff I don't know, there's at least some short bullet list of stuff that I do know that maybe some people would enjoy. And even when you think you know something, you don't necessarily know everything about it. and you end up learning in the process of teaching because you have to discover stuff with each other. Land BR, my work commute is 1 hour, but I tend to work remotely like 5 to 10% of the time. Yeah, I I would not do well 100% remote. I wouldn't. But I wonder, is it so Rambling Geek? Is it when you asked, do they generally have a policy of no remote work ever? And so maybe they just defaulted on that. So what I would say is try to find out if that rule is because of something bad that happened. Like, did they really tighten down that rule because maybe someone took advantage of it in the past? And that's a whole different story than if they're just like, no, that's just our policy. Because if it's because of, you could have two different tactics to try to approach that issue in the discussion. If it's because somebody abused it in the past, then it's going to be a little harder to get trust to try it out. Say half day, one day. Like you just go home at noon and work the rest of that one day remotely. And then do good work and be responsive and be supportive for your team, be there when you're needed, and it'll gradually build up to say, well, how about all of the day that day? And then if you're already at one day, then maybe you say, hey, let's bring it to like 2 days. And that's one way. If they've never done it before and they have some weird policy, then I'm not sure. Oh, hang on. A small company of 8 of us. I think the MD is old school and just thinks he won't work. Yeah, that's the other thing is that, well, for a moment, let's put yourselves in that person's shoes. If they think that you won't work, think about where is that coming from. How do they know that you are working when you're in the office? Is their only indication because they see you there? I mean, are there any other systems to verify that work is getting done? Are there, tickets closed, code committed, meetings attended, whatever? Because if there's no sort of metric around it, then you've got an uphill battle if someone thinks that the only indicator of work getting done is a butt in a seat. That's an uphill battle. And that's also a smell in business if you don't have any other metrics that would define work is getting done and things are progressing. But anyway, that's my TED Talk on remote work and how to get there. So, all right. To review kind of the way that I set up AWS accounts and organizations is multiple individual accounts under the same organization, and you would have one that will kind of house your rules. Rambling Geek, yeah, I was just trying to say what if, just speculating maybe from some other things that I've seen around. Trying not to assume the worst, but, reality's reality sometimes. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. If there are no systems in place, think about how could you put systems in place that prove that work is getting done to allow that metric to be evaluated on your half day at home or your full day at home that then would be able to build that trust. I'm just saying if there's nothing there now, then you're either kind of stuck with it or you're going to have to do a little extra leg work to change that or leave. I mean, I don't know, or leave. That's always a tough decision. So what we have is we have an IM user sitting in a main account, and we don't really have a bunch of stuff running in there. They're just users. Those users get they have the ability to use the security token service from IAM and get short-term credentials to assume the role of this thing, an admin, in a whole different account. And this is a very common setup, but now I'm thinking, well, I have a new business problem. This is fine if you're going to create one user. But if you have 40 that you need to create, it's going to be really unruly, and you at that point would want to bring in like some sort of SSO, like with AD, Active Directory. But I'm kind of stuck with Acme Company in that we don't have that set up yet, and we're using ECR for our Docker images. So they're by and large private. We have a particular role that automation can use to push and pull, but an individual developer, they need to be able to pull down those images, those Docker images down from the registry, right? Well, how do you set everybody up with their AWS accounts? Well, for one, people are going to have to learn. But for two, when you're creating these IAM users so that they can have keys, and they can't share keys, then I'm trying to think of a more automated way to manage this and do this completely with Terraform. So this is kind of a sketch out of what I think I'm going to have to do. So, first step, import the AWS architecture diagrams. We're going to have, let's say we're going to have 2 accounts. If you guys are curious, Lucidchart is a fantastic diagramming tool. It's one of 2 that I use, and it just makes things easier since not everyone is a visual person, but I am, and it makes it easier for me to communicate. And there are some people that are more visual learners, and they are kind of hesitant to say that they are. Tarragon says, worst is if the boss starts telling you, why are you doing it this way? When I was developing, we did not need it. Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, just tell them, well, back in my day, we used to develop code uphill both ways in the snow, right? I don't know what else to say about that. A visual learner, Rambling Geek. I feel like I am too. There are people that kind of hesitate saying that in our industry because they feel like it makes them feel they'll be perceived as somehow weaker or not as good as a developer because they can't learn everything from reading man pages in the console. And I'm here to tell you, visual learning is amazing. So we're going to have some automation that I will find in a second, if I can. DevTools, here we go. Nope, I want, no, code build. Okay. And we have ECR somewhere. Right here. Want your boss to help you grow, not to enforce that you're working. Yeah. And that's the thing is, people are not factories, and this is not that type of work. So we're going to have, what I know that we're going to have is in this account. So in here, we'll just say that this is an IAM root billing account, and a whole different account, we'll just call this ops for the company, which will house one or many ECR registries. There will be, and we'll call this dev, right? Nikki Dubs, my relationship with my director and boss is very casual and fun. I'm so lucky. It's unique, right? Oh, one Pollux, is Terraform similar to Ansible? No. Different use cases. So Terraform would be for creating and provisioning your infrastructure, where Ansible is more for configuring stuff on your infrastructure. So for example, in our example here, so Terraform would be responsible for creating all of this stuff. But as far as what goes on inside the instance, as far as configuring dependencies, then that could be a place for Ansible. However, I will caution you that it is much faster to configure and build up an instance to be saved as an AMI than to take some AMI and run a bunch of Ansible scripts on it. whenever you spin it up. Reason being, imagine that you had some EC2 instances that are in an auto-scaling group, and you have a CloudWatch metric alarm that says, demand has exceeded what we can supply, we need another instance. When that thing triggers to start up that instance from an AMI, you are at the demand. Like, you need it right now, and you don't want to waste a whole bunch of time with the fact that some user data and an Ansible script or set of scripts is going to be doing a bunch of stuff on it. So use Ansible to configure things on the infrastructure, bake an image, save the image, use that. Don't do a bunch of live stuff, and use Terraform to do the infrastructure that your stuff runs on. Oh, and Pollux, does that answer your question? Does that make sense? They're not competing technologies, even though some people try to use Ansible to deploy their infrastructure, like doing API calls and all kinds of stuff, where Terraform really is the right tool for that job. So in here, I'm going to say that maybe I'm going to end up with a whole mess of users. So let's say 40-ish. And they're all going to need this, and they'll be... I wonder if there's a icon for a group. Douglas Coding is now following. Thank you very much for the follow, Douglas Coding. Welcome to the chat. If you have any questions, post it in here. We're a warm, welcoming community. Everybody likes to help out. We troubleshoot, we debug, we do cloud architecture, we do GraphQL, we do Docker. We have fun, and we apparently break things, don't realize it, and fix it live. We do it live. I don't know if hang on. I think I have a do it live. No, I don't have a do it live. Oh, I spelled it wrong. That would be why. There we go. We do it live. So I've got 40 of these users that I would want to put into a group. Give them STS access, which means so they're going to have a policy. And do we have that? Do we have that? Certificate. I don't think I have all the icons I really wish that I had. Nope. Nope. There we go. Yeah. So that'll be their permissions. We'll include permissions to assume the role that will live over here that's allowed to pull. We'll do this. Whoops. How about we not do goofy stuff? Okay, we'll have that. We'll have another one that we know that our automation is going to have to be able to push pull, because it's going to be building intermediate images and whatnot, right? Like a developer checks in code. Okay, take the code, clone the repo, build a Docker image from it, push it to the registry. Another step, pull it from the registry, deploy it on the infrastructure, roll it out on the cluster. That kind of thing. So the real thing that I'm trying to figure out here is, let's see. We'll do that. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I want that living here or living here. Probably living here. And that means I'm also going to have an S3 bucket for the state, so I can keep track of these users that I created. Yeah. Cool. Let's just contain these together. Range, send it back. We'll group them together. Oops. That. This thing. We'll go get that. So I think I don't think I'm going to have time for it today, but this is what I want to build out in Terraform. And so to get a head start, I'll show you how I would even find that. So we go to the documentation for Terraform, and I know that my provider is AWS. On here, I'm just going to do a page search for IAM and make sure. No, that's not what I want. So there's a difference between a data source and a resource. I'm going to be creating these things. Data would be where there's something that exists that you're pulling in, and I don't want that. I want to actually create them. So I know it's not that one. There we go. And so all these things. Not data. You know, if there's one thing that I could say is I really kind of wish their documentation was a little easier to use. It's very difficult to find some of this stuff. But yeah, so here, now it's a resource. Okay, all right. So let's parse through this. What is this even saying? I'll make it bigger. There we go. Can you guys read that? And if you're curious, I'll put in here what I'm looking at. So I'll create a user, and in Terraform I give it a name. That's what this LB is. You name it whatever you want. This is mostly for what it's going to be called in your Terraform files and in your Terraform state for your later kind of pulling out of stuff. You can now tag users. Believe it or not, being able to tag IAM users is new. I think it was released at reInvent this past November. So access key, a policy. Yeah, this is going to work for us. Yeah, that's going to work. I don't like this, though. And the other thing is that I'm going to have to create a bunch of them. So one of the experiments is we're just going to have to figure out what does this thing even output, right? I don't even know. If I were to do that, what would it even output? Because we're probably going to have something in our automation that will email the user, hey, you've been whatever, because they leave that as a manual exercise to the AWS operator. It says, hey, send an email with the stuff. So hopefully we can automate that part of it. But if I could use that, I could create the users. I could create these policies. I could create this role first, so I get the role ARN, because that's the role I need. O1 Pollux, thank you so much, man. You're a really good streamer. Love the way you give quality answers to your chat's question. You're one in a million. Hey, a stream is not a stream without the people here in the chat talking to each other. So, so if there's stuff that is not making sense, or if I haven't answered it enough, then ask me, and we may even get to a point where I'm like, well, heck, I don't know why I feel that way, or like, it could be that, but a lot of it could be I've seen the way a lot of things are done, and so sometimes it's informed by that. Like, yes, on paper this looks like a good idea, but then, no, please don't do that. That's terrible. Here's why. That kind of thing. My game streams would beg to differ. Nikki Dubs, what do you mean? Oh, are you talking about the way that people are different in the game community? Yeah, the dev community is different. I mean, I had mentioned to a client that I was starting to stream, and I referred them to one of my VODs because I was going over Terraform, and they said, what, you're streaming? Like, what, are you playing Overwatch or something? Like, it blew their mind that there's like non-gaming streams, and I was like, oh, you have so much to see. There's so much more. So I think I'm actually going to leave it at this. I'll have to think about this and maybe do a little more research and a proof of concept, because my big concern really is more around the user creation and the CLI keys that they'll need to get or create, and then passwords that they'll need to get those, or how are we going to do it? I don't necessarily want to give these particular users console access, but then I think they're going to need it if they're going to be managing their keys to be able to rotate them. And when I create IM users, I select the option to give CLI access, but when it creates those keys, I go into their account and I delete them. And then they'll have to log in and create their own keys. That way, in my mind, I'm free of any sort of thought that I could ever possibly have someone else's CLI keys. I literally will not, because they're deleted. They're gone. You have to make your own, because you're responsible for what you do in AWS. So yeah, let me go update our stream notes with anything that I need to fix. So we want to get some subscriber emotes, right? We for sure want to do that. Did not see talk to me Gooseman's raid, or host and overlay. I didn't see that. What other broken stuff did you guys see that maybe we need to tweak? Spotify volume? Yeah. I don't know if there's a better way to manage that, or what we can do. Have I done anything in... Oh, Kubernetes. Yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I did a rollout at a previous company. Worldwide! Kubernetes is an interesting thing. It's gotten a lot easier now. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we did some of that. We did some of this. Do we have anybody that you guys know of that's going to be streaming that I could do a raid? That's always nice. Let me look for somebody here. Give somebody a nice raid. There may not be, I don't know. Stream schedules are getting a little weird. Let's see. Oh, do you guys want to check out Live or Dev Trying? Anyone watch them? So they're doing an Angular CLI and Signal R application. Owen Pollux asks, is it easier than working with AWS? No, they're different things, right? So AWS is just a provider, and they support Kubernetes. Chotchbeard, I swear I always stumble into your streams as you're wrapping up. Well, my man, I'm sorry. But you know, if you hit that follow, then you'll get a notification when I go live. See there? Yeah, let's give Live or Dev Trying a raid. Let's try that. Hang on, I'm gonna let them know that we'll be coming in. I want to make sure. Yeah, that's muted there. Or Rambling Geek, were you wanting to get going? Sorry, I missed your message. I didn't have Twitch up. Landon BR, thank you very much. Oh, that was very late. Okay, let's do this. I think if I do... let's see here. Give me 1 second. We'll figure this out. This is a really fun channel. He actually has like a game that you can play. It's like zombie hangman type thing. But go check them out. Pretty interesting dude. He has a really good opening. Thank you for coming to my channel and all that kind of thing. So yeah. Thanks all. I'm signing off. I'm going to send you over. Whoops. Ooh, that's cool. All right. I think we're going to send it over. Later, y'all.